The year is 1954. The landmark court case, Brown v. Board of Education, has recently been ruled in favor of educational integration in the United States. Changes are spreading through the school system like a wildfire.
Such a noticeable change in history was the integration of Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. 9 African American students were brought in to desegregate the all-white school. They were accompanied by the 101st Airborne Division, who were under strict orders to get them safely past the Arkansas National Guard, commissioned by Governor Orville Faubus to bar the 9 students from entry. However, the 101st Airborne Division were ultimately successful in their task, resulting in the first integrated school in all of America. While the integration of Central High School was for the greater good, the reaction from whites was far from supportive.
Elizabeth Eckford had missed the call to gather with the others before school. Elizabeth Eckford walked alone and met a mob.
This girl here was the first Negro, apparently of high school age, to show up at Central High School the day that a federal court ordered it integrated. She was followed in front of the school by an angry crowd, many of them shouting epithets at her.
Well, it has to be the most frightening thing. I mean, because she had a crowd of white people.
All over the nation, schools could be found closed down for failure to comply with the new integration laws. In response, groups such as the Ku Klux Klan were ready to protest the change, even if it meant violence. Along with that, thousands of whites protested the new integration laws, while blacks were generally in favor. However, this does not mean that all whites were bad people. The French philosopher Rousseau once stated that people are not born with prejudices, but society instills them.
It's just what they were taught growing up. You have to understand that it was just completely accepted that the white race was superior to the black race, and very few people questioned that.
Therefore, Brown v. Board of Education challenged the idea of separate but equal, and it was ruled in favor of integration by the Supreme Court of the United States in 1954. However, prejudices are still an issue in modern-day society. Protests are still prevalent, and they are for one reason: to prevent another era of racism and segregation.
I came up in integration and segregation, so I understand both sides of it. During my era, when I was your age, I used books that came from other schools. It would be chapters, pages, and things of this missing out of it. Because of Brown versus Board of Education, then all youth or all educators had to have the same information, which meant that if one school got new books, all schools had to get new books.
Segregation has had its toll on hundreds of thousands of African American children in America. Oftentimes, African American classrooms had less materials, which led to a poorer education. However, it all ended in 1954. Oliver Brown was an African American man from Topeka, Kansas. He had a daughter who had to walk 10 blocks to an African American bus stop, instead of just walking 3 blocks to a white school. He represented 20 other parents against the Topeka Board of Education. The case was brought all the way to the Supreme Court, where Thurgood Marshall argued for the case and eventually won. The effects of integration were immediately seen inside and outside of schools. As a matter of fact, changes are still being seen in the many diverse classrooms that now exist all throughout America.
By opening the door of integration and closing the door of segregation, American prejudices were ultimately reformed through the newfound interracial friendships that were developed. Even places such as the South became reformed in all ways, including jobs, marriage, and opportunities.
So, how do you think it revolutionized the modern education system and how it works today?
Yeah, I think it revolutionized the modern education system by preventing separate but equal and forcing the integration.
However, integration is believed to be being challenged. Wake County buses thousands of students each day, which amounts to high costs. As of now, Wake County has one of the most diverse school systems in America. Along with that, it also implements a magnet school system, which brings students from the base population and buses students from outside that area to a certain school within the city of Raleigh. The Wake County Board of Education has voted on a proximity school system that has rearranged schools to be in the proximity of neighborhoods. However, this makes people of the same socioeconomic status go to the same school. People of the same socioeconomic status are often of the same race. As seen in the free and reduced lunch map here, there is a distinguished line between the lower free and reduced lunch area and the inner city circle, where most schools have 25 to 50% students with free and reduced lunch. The areas are yellow because the lower income students are mixed with the higher income students due to magnet schools. However, a neighborhood school system will draw the higher income students back to their area and the lower income students back to their area. The school on this map that is starred, Hodge Road Elementary, has the highest free and reduced lunch rate on this map. The rate in December 2010 was 73.6%, and the forecast for 2012 to 2013 is 83.2%. This is almost a 10% jump in just 2 years, which is highly alarming. Do you believe that neighborhood schools segregate students?
I do. I think it's a social economic thing that will divide and separate.
I'm a mom who believes parents should have the choice to send their child to a neighborhood school. I'm Heather Lacerdo, and I'm running for school board to bring more neighborhood schools to Wake County. Neighborhood schools help create strong parent-teacher relationships, stronger communities, and save on transportation. I can and will do what you and I both know needs to be done. I'm Heather Lacerdo.
Brown versus Board of Education has caused a continuous revolution in our society. It has called people up into arms and revolutionized people to get involved. This involves people such as Heather Lacerdo and William Barber of the NAACP. The NAACP calls this new districting plan unconstitutional and has the possibility to segregate students. The NAACP has brought us to a national level.
Wake County has also made news on a national level. Stephen Colbert blasted the new neighborhood or proximity school plan for 5 full minutes on his show, The Colbert Report. He cites that in order to go forward, Wake County is resegregating schools. Both the NAACP and Colbert cite that this plan is in violation of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which states that people will have equal rights no matter what race or religion they are.
Chief Justice Earl Warren has also said that segregation violated the 14th Amendment during the landmark case Brown v. Board of Education and made it clear separate but equal in schools was unacceptable. People have even caused a revolution through protests in the nation against educational separation in places like Charlotte-Mecklenburg County and Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, I think the Brown v. Board of Education was a very important decision to recognize that there's no such thing as separate but equal.
And there isn't. As seen here, there are significant achievement gaps between students with equal level education but different family incomes. In Wake County, teacher proficiency is measured by test scores. These scores may be attributed to a student's lack of materials and parent support. According to statistics, lower income students have less materials and parent support.
It's not right to have an education, and you can't have a good and just education if you don't have the material.
The real question in the end is whether the socioeconomic division brought forth by Wake County ultimately challenged the equality brought forth by Brown versus Board of Education. However, just because education was different in African American classrooms was not the only reason schools were integrated. The integration of the Little Rock Nun was not only a key event in the American Civil Rights Movement, it was also a pioneer for millions of successful African American children. It bridged a cultural gap between blacks and whites, reformed American prejudices, and ultimately revolutionized the modern education system for all.
But I think the very significant thing that came out of that case is that even if you had all the stuff that is the same, you lose some value by having people separated.